Добрый день.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the first lecture in life safety. This is a lecture on natural disasters and global ecological problems. How to behave in case of a flooding. Are there any tsunamis in Crimea? What features of the construction of houses in Crimea help them to resist during an earthquake? How to survive during a hurricane? Why is there a problem with drinking water in Crimea? Why do we need the ozone layer? Is the threat of global warming real? About this and much more we will discuss in this lecture. The eruption of a volcano is a beautiful and terrible sight. There are still many active volcanoes on our planet. They also exist in the Russian Federation. During a volcanic eruption, primary and secondary hazards pose a threat to us. Primary hazards include lava flow, volcanic ash, shock wave, acid rain, hot and toxic gases. The lava flow has a very high temperature. On the mountainside, its speed can reach 40 kilometers per hour. Fortunately for us, after the slope of the volcano, on flat terrain, the speed of lava movement is not very high, several meters per hour. Therefore, you can easily escape from the lava flow. Volcanic ash is a danger to the respiratory system. To protect yourself from the volcanic ash, you need to cover your face with the respirator or cloth, preferably cotton. Toxic gases pose a threat only near a volcano. Sulfur dioxide, which is emitted by the volcano, reacts with water vapor in the air to form sulfuric acid. A volcanic eruption may be accompanied by an explosion or an earthquake. The shock wave can destroy buildings and knock down trees. The high temperature of the lava can cause a fire in the forest. The destruction of dams and the rapid melting of snow can lead to flooding and target flow. Active and extinct volcanoes are located at the junctions of the tectonic plates. Crimea is located on the Pacific tectonic belt. Therefore, earthquakes sometimes occur in Crimea. There are extinct, inactive volcanoes in Crimea. For example, the extinct volcano Kara Dag or Black Mountain. This volcano is located in the eastern part of Crimea, between the cities of Feodosia and Sudak. A lot of Soviet and Russian films in the style of science fiction were shot in this place. Many travel companies take tourists from the Simferopol to this place. Since Crimea is located on the Pacific tectonic plate, earthquakes sometimes occur in Crimea. The largest earthquake in Crimea occurred on September 11, 1927. Up to 70% of buildings were destroyed during the earthquake, but the number of people affected was relatively small. 17 people were killed, 350 people were injured. Such a small number of victims was because in Crimea, in a seismically dangerous zone, there are certain rules for the construction of houses. In the photo, you see a house with a destroyed wall, but the roof did not fall because of the wooden columns that support it. On this slide, you can see the design features of buildings in Crimea in the last century and now. The roof is held by columns. In the past, wooden, and in the present, reinforced concrete. In the event of an earthquake, part of the wall may be destroyed, but the roof does not fall down. Therefore, such houses are safer during an earthquake. Currently, the concept of magnitude is used to assess the strength of an earthquake. The magnitude depends on the amplitude of the displacement of the ground and is measured by a seismogram. During an earthquake, falling objects are the greatest danger in the room. Therefore, during an earthquake, first of all, you need to find a place. Therefore, during an earthquake, first of all, you need to find a safe place. For example, hiding under a table. You will protect your head from falling lamps and pieces of plaster from the ceiling. In addition to the space under the table, a safe place can also be considered a doorway, a space under an ark, a space under a bed, a place near a column, a place in the corner of the room. The floor and ceiling are most stable in the corner of the room and near the internal or load-bearing supporting walls. Running outside during an earthquake is a bad idea. During an earthquake, bricks, glass fragments, and even balconies will fall along the walls. It is almost impossible to overcome several meters without falling under falling objects and without injury. If people live in an area where earthquakes often occur, they should have a set of things for emergency evacuation. In this kit, it is recommended to have water, a first aid kit, food, a radio, a flashlight, and a supply of batteries. People who have health problems need to prepare medicines and spare glasses in advance. Before evacuation, you need to turn off the water, gas, and electricity. After an earthquake has occurred, you should be ready for repeated aftershocks. Check yourself and those around you whether there are any injuries. If necessary, provide first aid. Gas pipes are often damaged after an earthquake. Therefore, do not use an open fire and do not turn on electrical appliances as there may be a gas explosion. After an earthquake, try not to use your phone unnecessarily. After disasters, the telephone lines are heavily overloaded, which creates a problem for the work of emergency services. If you are in a car during an earthquake, you need to stop immediately. The most important thing is to choose a safe place to park the car. You can't stop near tall buildings, near poles with electric wires, under a bridge, or near large trees. They can fall down and damage the car. A tsunami is most often the result of an underwater earthquake. In Russia, tsunamis happen, for example, on the Kuril Islands. There is no tsunami in Crimea. The Black and Azov seas are too shallow for a large wave to form. During a tsunami, the wave becomes dangerous only when approaching the shore. Therefore, in the event of a tsunami threat, all ships receive a recommendation to go to the open sea. If there is a tsunami threat, people need to get as far away from the shore as possible. The safe distance depends on the terrain. But even on flat terrain, 2 kilometers is usually considered a fairly safe distance. If there are hills or mountains near the sea, it is advisable to climb as high as possible. Many reasons can lead to flooding: rapid melting of snow in the mountains, heavy rain, or damage to the dam at the reservoir. In the year 2021, due to heavy rains, flooding occurred in 2 cities of Crimea, in Yalta and Kerch. If there is a threat of flooding, it is necessary to climb up to the upper floors of houses and evacuate to the mountains and hills. If this is not possible, you need to find something that will allow you to stay on the surface for a long time. For example, an empty barrel or a tree trunk. A mountain collapse. This variant of natural disaster is often found in the Crimean mountains. Of course, highways, if possible, should be located in a safe zone, but this is not always feasible. If the collapse does occur, the road should be cleared of debris as soon as possible to prevent a traffic accident. A landslide is a shift of the top layer of the loose soil. Landslides are most common after heavy rains, when the soil is moist and can easily move to the side. To prevent landslides, it is recommended to To prevent landslides, it is recommended to prohibit construction in dangerous places, ensure a good outflow of water, and plant as many trees and shrubs as possible. The roots of trees and shrubs will hold the soil and strengthen the slope. On this slide, we come back to the question, what is a person willing to risk for the sake of a beautiful photo? Probably something small, for example, your life. Avalanches occur in the mountains of Crimea. In order to not get caught in an avalanche, you need to ski where it is allowed. If the ski track is official, it means that the mountain slope is regularly checked for the risk of an avalanche. If you see an avalanche, you can try to escape by falling to the ground or hiding behind a large stone. If the snow is loose, there is a lot of air inside it, a person cannot suffocate. The main thing is to avoid snow getting into the respiratory tract. To do this, you can cover your face with a hat or a scarf. Mud flow. It is a mixture of water, earth and rocks. Most often, this natural disaster happens after heavy rains or after a sharp melting of snow in the mountains. Mud flows in Crimea are quite common. In the year 2017, a mud flow damaged many cars near the city of Sudak. In 2021, a mud flow passed through the city of Yalta. You keep the results of a mud flow in Yalta. Everything that could not be lifted to the upper floors of the houses were destroyed. Hurricanes are also common in the Russian Federation. In case of a hurricane, it is advisable to stay indoors, close the windows and doors, and not get close to the windows. The safest place is in the basement. If there is no basement in the house, small rooms without windows inside the building will be the safest. For example, a bathroom or a toilet. During a hurricane, it is dangerous to be outside. The wind can tear a tile or a sheet of iron from the roof and throw it at a person. To form a tornado, a temperature difference and moist air are necessary. On the coast of Crimea, these conditions exist, so tornadoes are found here. In this photo, you can see the beginning of the formation of a tornado. And this is already a fully formed tornado. If a tornado caught a person outside the city, it is best to lie down on the ground or hide in some ditch or pit. Summer in Crimea is hot. Therefore, forest fires in Crimea are common. The causes of a forest fire can be lightning, smoking in the forest, a fire that has not been properly extinguished, homemade hunting cartridges of a poor quality. Even an empty glass bottle can cause a fire if it is not. Even an empty glass bottle can cause a fire if it is in the sun. In this case, the glass of the bottle can work as a lens and by concentrating the sunlight can cause a fire. If you see a fire, you need to immediately call the short number 101. If there is a chance to escape from the fire, do it. If there is no chance to escape, find a relatively safe place where there are no trees and shrubs. For example, a wide road or a river. An underground fire is very dangerous. An underground fire is not only a fire in a coal mine. An underground fire is a problem in the central part of Russia, near Moscow. There are a lot of swamps in these places. In the summer heat, the swamps dry up and the peat begins to burn. Very often, the fire does not remain on the surface but goes underground. You can assume that something is wrong by the elevated temperature or see smoke rising from the cracks in the ground. That means you need to get out of there immediately. Otherwise, you risk falling into a pit filled with fire. The fall of a meteorite is a very rare natural disaster. One of these cases occurred in the year 2013 near the city of Chelyabinsk, Russia. The meteorite fell very beautifully across the sky. and also exploded quite beautifully in the sky over the lake near the city. And a few seconds later, the shockwave knocked out the windows in houses. The result was 1,500 wounded by glass fragments. From this story, we can conclude that curiosity is harmful to health. If something flashes brightly outside the windows, do not rush to approach the window. It may be an explosion. If it was an explosion, then a shockwave will come and that will break the glass. Therefore, you need to wait a few seconds and only then watch what happened. Now we will talk about the environment. The environment can be natural, unchanged, for example, in a nature reserve. The environment can be natural, unchanged, for example, in a nature reserve. Modified, for example, in a city. Artificial, inside an airplane. And polluted. Pollution is a situation when some factor in the environment, could be chemical, physical, or biological, is in an amount exceeding the standards. There are several types of standards. The maximum permissible concentration is for chemicals. The maximum permissible dose is for radiation. The maximum permissible level is for other physical factors, for example, noise. There is a different approach to rationing natural and anthropogenic factors. There is an optimum zone for natural factors. For example, with the lack of ultraviolet light, there is a risk of rickets in children. And with an excess of ultraviolet light, the risk of skin cancer increases. Between these extremes is the optimal zone. For anthropogenic factors, as a rule, there is no optimal zone. There is only one critical point, after which the threshold of harmful effects occurs. To access the safety of the environment for human health, 3 types of monitoring are used: analytic, medical, and environmental. To carry out analytical monitoring, samples of water, soil, air, and food are taken and delivered to the laboratory. Medical monitoring is the control of public health. If the number of diseases associated with environmental pollution increases among the population, measures are taken. Environmental monitoring, control of environmental systems. For example, the death of birds may be the result of air pollution, and a large number of insects can be the result of soil contamination with organic substances. Let's talk about air pollution. The largest source of atmospheric air pollution is industry. In second place is transport. However, we have practically no industry in Crimea. Therefore, transport is the main source of pollution for Crimea. Smog is a mixture of smoke and fog. All textbooks describe smog in London and Los Angeles. This is history. In London, no one has been heating stoves with wood or coal for a long time, and the number of industrial enterprises in Los Angeles has significantly decreased. Now, smog is a problem of countries with a high concentration of industrial facilities. This is a problem of China and India, although smog also exists in some industrial cities of the Russian Federation. Prevention of smog is by installation of sewage treatment plants. The acid rain is formed due to a chemical reaction between sulfur dioxide or nitrogen dioxide with water vapor. The acid concentration is high enough to damage plants. Acid rain or fog cause accelerated corrosion of metal and irritate the respiratory tract, contributing to lung disease. To prevent the formation of acid rain, it is necessary to reduce emissions of these substances and install treatment facilities. The greenhouse effect is the result of atmospheric pollution by greenhouse gases. Normally, 30 to 40% of sunlight is reflected back into space. but greenhouse gases delay infrared radiation and prevent it from escaping into space. As a result, the temperature of the atmosphere rises. This leads to the melting of glaciers, an increase in the level of seas and oceans, flooding of coastal areas of the Earth. The water of the seas is diluted with fresh water from melted ice. Reducing the salinity of water harms marine life. Rising temperatures change the climate. Climate changes is causing the death of some plants and animals. Carbon dioxide is the main greenhouse gas. Methane and nitric oxide are also able to retain infrared radiation. In order to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide emissions, the whole world is switching to renewable sources of electricity. For example, there are 4 solar power plants operating in Crimea, and 7 power plants are powered by wind energy. Another global environmental problem is the thinning of the ozone layer. Ozone is formed from oxygen under the influence of ultraviolet rays. The ozone layer is located at an altitude of 18 to 20 kilometers and protects us from short-wave ultraviolet radiation. Ozone easily enters into chemical reactions and is very easily destroyed. For example, chlorine is a catalyst and can destroy about 1,000 ozone molecules, turning it into ordinary oxygen. Chlorine cannot rise to the height of the ozone layer by itself. It reacts chemically with other substances even in the surface layer of air. But freons are chemically more stable. They reach the ozone layer without any problems. Later, a chlorine atom is detached from the freon and begins to destroy the ozone layer. Therefore, to protect the ozone layer, all states of the world are trying to limit the use of freons. Excess ultraviolet radiation increases the risk of skin cancer, reduces the body's immunity, causes cataract and inflammation of the retina, called retinitis. Excess ultraviolet light is also harmful to some plants. A large amount of ultraviolet light reduces the yield of corn, rice, and soybeans. Another global problem is the problem of lack of fresh water. How can this be if the surface of our planet is 71% covered with water? The problem is that the water layer on the surface of the planet is quite thin. In addition, only 3% of all water on the planet is drinkable. Of this 3%, half is located at the poles. It is impossible to get it. Of the remaining 1.5%, another half is too deep underground. It is economically inefficient to extract it. This leaves us with only 0.75% of water we can use, of course if it is not contaminated. Unfortunately, available freshwater supplies are declining worldwide. An example is the Aral Sea. Uncontrolled water withdrawal for irrigation of cotton fields quickly turned a large lake of freshwater into several small salt reservoirs. There is also a problem with freshwater in Crimea. Until 2014, Crimea received freshwater from the territory of Ukraine, from the Dnieper River through the North Crimean Canal. There are no large rivers in Crimea. Water is stored in reservoirs. 15 reservoirs receive water from the Crimean mountains during the melting of snow. 8 reservoirs used to receive water from the North Crimean Canal. The closure of the North Crimean Canal in 2014 reduced the available water supply in Crimea by 150 million cubic meters. Fortunately, this problem was solved by drilling new wells and transferring water between reservoirs. Unfortunately, the water level in reservoirs strongly depend on the amount of rain and snow. Soil pollution is an important environmental problem. The importance of the soil is due to the fact that it is in the soil that all trophic chains begin. If the soil is contaminated, the contaminant enters the plant and accumulates in the meat of the animals. Protection of the soil from pollution is an important area of prevention of diseases related to nutrition. Another problem is biological diversity. The greater the number of the species in an ecological system, the more stable this ecological system is. Previously, animals or plant species disappeared, mainly due to natural global disasters. Now, due to environmental pollution, about 70% of animals disappear every day. Plants disappear more slowly as they are more resistant to changes in the environment. If the situation does not change, the global ecological system will be in a very unstable position in the coming years. The disappearance of forests is also an important environmental problem. Forests generate oxygen, regulate the water regime of the territory, and participate in the formation of the climate. The forest is not only a source of building materials, food, medicines. The forest is also a habitat for various animals, birds, and insects. When the forest is destroyed, many species can die. Environmental protection is carried out on several levels. The highest level is administrative and legislative measures. This is the creation of laws that ensure the protection of the environment. The next level is hygiene measures. These include preventive and routine sanitary supervision. Preventive sanitary supervision includes control over construction of new facilities that may pollute the environment. When planning and building them, it is necessary to take into account the presence of all protective structures. Ongoing sanitary supervision includes constant monitoring of the level of pollution. Architectural and planning measures. All facilities that can pollute the environment should be built outside the city, away from residential areas. They cannot be located near water sources. Medical and hygienic measures include monitoring the health of the population. To environmental monitoring dash control over the stability of ecological systems. Technological measures include changing the production cycle, replacing toxic substances with less toxic ones, reuse of substances, that's called recycling, and the use of treatment facilities to reduce the release of toxic substances. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you in the next one.